So Donald and Carl had this vision to make premium wine, but how did Icewine fit into the picture? How did that happen?
Yeah, the Icewine was a crazy idea, I thought, that Carl had. He said, we're just going to leave a few rows of it all out here right by the driveway, and we're going to press them frozen because that's what he's heard that they do in Germany. It was at a time when we were happy to have harvest over with, and now it's like, oh man, we got to leave a few rows of grapes, and we're going to press them frozen. And I was skeptical because I didn't even think that they would last, because I thought they're just going to dry up, shrivel up, and fall off. But they hung on, and yeah, that was 1983, and there was a bit of snowfall in the morning. We came into work, we were working in the cellars. Carl came about half an hour later, and he said, why did you pick the grapes? It wasn't cold enough. And we're like, we didn't pick the grapes, and obviously we don't even know what we're doing, so we're hoping for your direction on that. And what had happened is a flock of starlings came in and cleaned out the few rows that we left.
They ate all the grapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in a matter of like 45 minutes.
Wow.
And we found that out over the years, that once there's snowfall, there's a lot of pressure on the fruit that's left out there. And Carl said, hey, you know what? Maybe we should net these grapes next year. We didn't even consider it the first time.
Wow. Were there many other things to be done to get to this final Icewine production then?
Yeah, we had some hit and misses with production. We always thought it was the colder the better. So when we picked up -18 one night and Carl was trying to press it, he was breaking presses and snapping chains and breaking shear pins and all kinds of stuff. And he's like, no, like you gotta stop. And we're like, but you know, we didn't want to stop because the wheels were in motion, we were already doing it. We found out over the years too that the sweet spot is -10, -12 in that area. Obviously too mild is not good, but too cold is not good either, because Carl could hardly get that stuff to ferment because the weight of the juice was actually suffocating the yeast. So we have picked too early, and the grapes were actually still green, but they were frozen. And when we pressed those, it was like this glob of green foam that came out. It was very un-Icewine-like. Wow. Then it was like, no, the first opportunity we're not going to go either. So,
what are the most important regulations for Icewine?
First, we register our grapes so that there's a governing board that knows how many grapes we've got out there, basically. And then we wait to a minimum of -8. As I mentioned, I like it a little colder than that, -10, and then we get it to the crush platform, and we press it outside as well, and making sure that those grapes remain cold. So it's not only -10 when we pick it, but it has to stay cold so that those grapes don't thaw out.
So I want to know a bit about how the harvest unfolds. Do you have a red hot phone by your bed, or how does it work?
Pretty much, actually. I've got the weather stations all on my computer, my phone, on the TV going constantly, and then it's a waiting game.
Yeah.
And then we wait till we get to that, I call it a window of opportunity, and that's that -8 to -14, in that range. And when that happens, we see it coming, and the viticulturist, Gerald and I, are in close contact, and we'll see it and say, well, it looks like it's coming up in a few days, and we can get set up here within a matter of a few hours.
Yeah.
Getting ready for the grapes. And then we get it to the crush platform, and we press it outside as well, and making sure that those grapes remain cold. So it's not only -10 when we pick it, but it has to stay cold so that those grapes don't thaw out.
by chance, we thought we'll try some with a machine. I didn't think it was going to work, but the machine was very effective at harvesting the grapes.
And faster, I would imagine.
And faster, and without the labor, with all the people that were required in the past, because I used to have to call 60 people up in the middle of the night to come and pick. And then the next night,
they wouldn't answer the phone.
That's right. It's hard to go back to back.
Yeah.
And typically when we get a cold snap, it is that way. So we'd have 60 people one night, and then 30 the next night, and then 15 maybe the next night. So it was very difficult to get people. So the machine harvesting works fantastic. It also lets us pick only when they're frozen, because when the grapes are frozen, they're like marbles, and the machine knocks them off the vines and they rattle through the netting like marbles. You can tell by the sound whether they're frozen or not. When they're not frozen, they get hung up in the netting and it doesn't come through. But again, you can tell just by the sound.
Which is a great quality check.
Yes, it is.
Do you use different grapes or different clones?
No, we allocate different blocks of the vineyard to Icewine or table wine, and that's set earlier in the season. So we know for the whole season, this block is going to be left for Icewine, this block is left for table wine.
We hear a lot about freeze thaw, freeze thaw. Is that important for you here? Or?
It's something that's, you hear a lot of that more recently. Yeah. I think that's really important for the actual Vidal grape. Something like Riesling and Cab Franc, less important. We like to get those vinifera varieties out very quickly. They're a little thinner skinned and they have a tendency to break down. Yeah. But the Vidal, I think, benefits from the freeze thaw.
How does Icewine get so sweet?
Well, we start by leaving the grapes on the vine until it gets cold. Personally, I like it about -10 Celsius. And when that happens, the water within the grape freezes, leaving the very concentrated juice behind. Now, just as an example, during regular harvest, a Vidal or Riesling would be about 20% sugar. But when we freeze it to that -10, we double that sugar and it becomes about 40%. And there, in fact, is the
difference. And of course, you don't ferment all that out either, so it's even...
No, it can't ferment out that. But we ferment it, I like it to around the 9 to 10%. That leaves us with about 25% or 250 grams per liter of residual sugar left.
And that is sweet.
That is sweet.
I want to ask you about aging Icewine. Can we keep it, and how long could we keep it if we do?
Icewine, without question, can age for a long time, and it's a preference for the consumer if they want to enjoy it now when it's fresh, or they can have it lie it down. Like any wine, it has to be stored properly, and under the proper conditions, with that high sugar and the high acidity, it can age very gracefully for many years.